My name is Emily Carter. I'm 15 years old. I was born and raised in Savannah, Georgia, a city full of churches, ancient trees, and stories that drift like ghosts on the wind. That Sunday, everything seemed normal. I had gone to church with my mother, as we did every weekend. The pastor preached about repentance, about how we are living in the last days. I remember looking up at the stained glass window in the church and thinking, that's an exaggeration. Everyone has been saying that forever. After church, we headed back home. I was on my phone, laughing at a message from the school group when it all happened. A noise, a flash, the sound of metal ripping, then nothing. I was later told that the car was hit by a pickup truck that had run a red light at high speed. My mother survived with minor injuries. I was thrown from the car. My heart stopped. The medical team says they tried everything: CPR, adrenaline, shocks. But at 10:47 p.m. that night, I was officially pronounced dead. The hospital called my father, who was out of town. My mother couldn't even speak. And me? I was no longer there. At least, not in what we call life. Only, on the other side, I was more aware than ever. And that's when it started. It was when he appeared. If you are here until now, it is because something inside you also feels that there is more than what meets the eye. So stay with me. This story will change you forever. And if at any point you feel like this message needs to reach more people, click like and subscribe. You could be the reason someone hears what no one else wants to tell. I don't know how to explain it in a way that makes sense, but I saw it all. When my heart stopped, I felt like I was being pulled out of my body at an incredible speed. It didn't hurt. It was more like a sudden shutdown, complete silence. No light, no darkness, just nothing. A void that has no name. But then, as if someone flipped a switch, I was above the hospital, floating. I saw my body on the stretcher, the doctors running from one side to the other, shouting commands that I didn't understand. The nurse was crying. One of the rescuers knelt in the corner of the room and made the sign of the cross. That shocked me more than my own death, because until then, I thought that only very old adults died like that, not 15-year-old girls. And that's when things got even weirder. Somehow, I was taken home. Not walking, not flying. It was like being pulled, as if my spirit was tied to an invisible thread that guided me. In my living room, my father had just arrived. He was still holding his suitcase when he heard the news. The phone slipped from his fingers. He fell to his knees. The scream that tore from his throat was unlike anything I had ever heard. A primal sound, as if his soul had been ripped out. My mother? She was in the hospital, her face covered in blood, refusing to believe it. She kept saying, "My daughter is sleeping. She's just sleeping." But the worst was yet to come. 2 days later, I attended my own wake. There were flowers, pictures of me smiling in my school uniform. The church was full. Friends, neighbors, teachers, all telling me how sweet, how kind, how full of life I was. People who had barely spoken to me seemed deeply shaken. And there I was, standing in the back of the church, screaming that I was alive, trying to touch them. But no one saw me. No one heard me. The pastor was talking about the mystery of God's will. But there was something strange about the place. Something was out of place. The lights seemed darker. The air seemed denser. And it was at that moment that I felt a presence. It wasn't human. A shadow formed beside the coffin. It had no face, but I knew it was looking at me. And then, for the first time, I heard a voice, not with my ears, but inside my mind. These, "You've seen too much, but it's not over yet." At that moment, everything changed again. I was torn from there and thrown somewhere else, a place where darkness was alive, where time did not exist, where fear had form. And it was there, in that place, that he appeared, not like in the paintings, not like in the Christmas stories. Jesus stood before me, but his look was one of sadness, a sadness that pierced. He said my name, and then he showed me something I will never forget. When my feet touched that ground, I knew I was no longer on earth. It wasn't heaven. And it definitely wasn't hell. It was something between the two. A place of transition, of judgment, where time seemed stuck in an eternal now. And that's where I saw him, Jesus. But before you think of the calm figure in the paintings, with open arms and a gentle smile, forget it. What I saw was different, deeply real. His presence was like a silent hurricane, imposing, overwhelming, and at the same time, filled with inexplicable pain. He was dressed in white, a white that looked alive, like it was breathing. But his eyes, God, his eyes, they weren't judgmental. They weren't angry. They were filled with a sadness so deep that I felt ashamed, as if all the pain in the world was reflected there. He called me by name, Emily. His voice was not heard with the ears. It was felt in the soul, like a gentle thunder within the chest. I tried to speak. I tried to ask what was going on, but my mouth wouldn't move. I didn't need to. He knew. He already knew everything. With a gesture of his hand, he showed me visions. Thousands, millions, as if time had been torn apart and allowed me to see every corner of the world, at every moment. I saw wars, famines, children crying, parents killing each other, people destroying people. I saw people smiling in the face of evil, people laughing while others suffered, and I saw churches, full of people, but truly empty. Then he said, "They have forgotten. They are using me, not listening to me. They are playing with the sacred while time runs out." My soul began to tremble. I wanted to go back. I wanted to erase all of that from my mind. But he kept showing me. It was like I was being torn apart inside, seeing all of that. "Emily," he said, "the world is not just sleeping. It is drowning. And few are trying to save it." I cried. Or what it would be like to cry in that place. My essence cried, and he came closer. "You will come back, and you will tell the truth. But know this, few will listen to you. Some will laugh, others will hate. But keep going. Time is running out." Then he touched my face, and at that moment, I was pulled in again by an invisible force, as if I was being sucked into a whirlpool of light. When I opened my eyes, I was back, inside a black bag, in the morgue. And the first sound that came out of my mouth was a scream, because I didn't come back alone. What came next was just the beginning of the real nightmare. The scream that left my mouth echoed through the morgue like thunder in an empty cave. The clerk who was about to close the black bag fell back, screaming. My eyes were open, my chest was heaving, and I was alive. But nothing about me was the same. I looked at the walls, at the lamps, at the people, and everything seemed distorted, as if I were between two worlds. I was immediately taken to the ICU. Doctors talked about a miracle. Others talked about a failure in the equipment. But I knew the truth. I had come back, because I had been sent back. For the first few hours, I didn't say anything. I just cried, because in my head, the images were still vivid, not as memories, but as if they were still happening at that very moment. And then, when I finally managed to fall asleep, I was pulled back in, but not to the same place. This time, I was taken to a dark room. It wasn't physical. It was as if the room existed within my own consciousness. No ceiling, no floor, just shadows and voices, shouting, screams of people begging for mercy, some begging for a second chance, others just crying names. And the worst part, some of those voices were familiar. I heard names I recognized. An elementary school teacher who everyone loved, but who, in the shadows, had secrets that no one knew about. A neighbor who gave me candy when I was a child. A former classmate who had disappeared out of nowhere the year before. And I asked, why? Why are they here? And the answer came like a whisper tearing through the soul. Because knowing the truth is not the same as living it. I wanted to run away. I wanted to cover my ears, close my eyes, erase it from my mind. But in that place, there was no escape, only revelation. It was at that moment that I felt his presence again. But now, Jesus was silent, watching. His eyes were no longer just sad. There was a weight, an urgency. And then, He reached out his hand, and in it, a blue flame began to burn. And from within the fire, another name emerged, a name that made my heart stop for an instant. It was mine. You see, where the path of those who only listen but do not change ends. I started crying, begging. I don't want to go back there. I don't want to be like them. And he answered, then tell, show, tell. Are you still there? Tell me, what do you think this all means? Do you believe that there are people around you who are walking towards this same place? Without even knowing it? Leave it in the comments, what you feel about it. Maybe someone else will read what you wrote and wake up in time. What happened next was even scarier. After that dark room, I thought I had seen the worst. That nothing could shake me more than hearing the names of those I had known, begging for a second chance that would never come. But I was wrong, because Jesus didn't leave me there. He took me to another place, a place where there were no screams, no shadows, just silence, a silence so thick that it hurt. The transition was like stepping through an invisible curtain. Suddenly, the darkness disappeared. All around me, there was light, but not ordinary light. It was a living light, one that seemed to breathe. It enveloped me as if it had a consciousness of its own. And then, I felt it. Peace. A peace so absolute that for a moment I thought, this is it. This is heaven. But something was wrong. As I walked through that place, if you can call it walking, I noticed an absence. Not of beauty, because it was the most beautiful place I had ever seen. There were shining rivers, endless fields, and soft music that came from no instrument. The absence was of joy. I expected to see people smiling, running, hugging angels. But what I saw were serene faces, yes, but with sad eyes, as if they knew something that kept them contemplating, as if they were waiting for a return. That was taking too long. And then Jesus spoke again. Heaven is ready, but empty. I didn't understand. What do you mean, empty? Because many are choosing another path, and those who already know the truth are silent. I looked around. The beauty of the place was indescribable, but it was also like an abandoned cathedral, so glorious and so silent. It was at that moment that I saw something that changed everything. There, up ahead, was a book. It floated in the light, as if it were made of molten gold and glass. Jesus reached out to it. The book opened by itself to a specific page, and I saw a list of names. Thousands. But I didn't recognize any of them, until he turned a page, and there it was. My mother's name. My heart raced. Is she going here? And he answered, in the softest voice I have ever heard, if she stays on the path, yes. What if it doesn't continue? He closed the book. The sound of the clasp was like a sentence. I fell to my knees. I cried. I begged. Then let me go back, please. I need to tell. I need to warn. Jesus bent down to me, placed his hand on my shoulder and said, you will have little time, enough to plant seeds. But don't cling to time. Cling to urgency. And before I could ask more, everything began to unravel. The light, the peace, the presence. I was being pulled back, and with one last look, he said to me, tell the truth, even when they call you crazy, even when they want to silence you. You know what you saw. When I woke up again, I was no longer just a teenager from Savannah. I was the bearer of a message, and time was running out. After that vision of the book, I was never the same again. My parents tried to treat me as they had before. The doctors said I was in shock, that it was all the result of trauma and hallucinations. But deep down, even they knew that something had changed. They could see it in my eyes, and I could see it in theirs. Fear. The days that followed were confusing. I felt like a foreigner in my own body, as if part of me was still there. The voices on the other side didn't disappear. And as absurd as it may seem, I felt like I was being watched. One night I woke up in a cold sweat. My room was pitch black, but I could feel a presence, a heavy, suffocating presence. When I tried to turn on the light, it didn't work. The bulb simply blew out with a loud pop, and then, from the corner of the wall, something appeared. He was not a complete figure, It was like a living shadow, pulsating, breathing. And that voice came back. It wasn't Jesus. It was another one. More serious, rough, filled with hate. Your mouth will bring condemnation. You have been warned. Keep silent, I screamed. My mother ran into the room, turned on the hallway light, and everything disappeared. But the smell of burning lingered in the air, and my hands were as cold as ice and covered in ash. The next day, I tried to tell a trusted teacher everything. I thought she would listen to me, that she would help me understand. But as soon as I said the words, "I saw Jesus and he gave me a warning," she looked at me like I was a psychiatric case. Fake smile. Referral to school counselor. The principal called my parents. They said it was post-traumatic stress. They insisted that I stay home. But how can I rest with that inside me? It was then that the visions began, even while awake. In the kitchen, I saw the image of the city completely covered in water, as if a tsunami had swallowed everything. At school, I saw flames rising up the walls, while people ran in despair without being seen. And all these images were accompanied by the same sentence: "It's closer than you think." I started writing everything down: dreams, images, words. Until one morning, I was awakened by a sound that seemed to echo from beyond. Knocks. 3 times. A break. 3 more. Always outside my bedroom window. And when I looked, I saw nothing, except for an envelope attached to the glass. Inside, on it, a white sheet with 3 words written in red. "You've already started." The warning he gave me was clear, but the consequences, I still had no idea what was in store for me. Since the day I received that envelope, something inside me was awakened once and for all. I knew there was no turning back. It wasn't just about me. It wasn't just a near-death experience. It was a mission, a calling, and I had little time. But even so, a doubt began to grow inside me like silent poison. What if I'm crazy? Because let's be honest, who would believe a 15-year-old girl who claims to have come back from the dead with a message from Jesus? And doubt is treacherous. It disguises itself as lucidity. I started to avoid talking about it with people. When I tried to tell someone what I had seen, the reaction was always the same: skepticism, nervous laughter, or that distant look in my eyes that just wanted you to stop talking. You isolate me. I spent days in my room, rereading the Bible, as if it were a map to help me understand everything. I read the Apocalypse 3 times in a row. Each word seemed to jump off the page and into my reality. And then, the first sign happened. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The sky was clear with no clouds. But suddenly, without any warning, a crazy wind started blowing on my street. Trees bent, leaves flew, and a loud noise, like a scream coming from the sky, made all the neighbors run out of their houses. The power went out. The sky turned yellow for a few seconds. And I heard that same voice I heard on the other side. But this time, it was different. It wasn't Jesus. It was something, calling me by name. Not with anger, not with kindness, with a kind of envy. They won't listen to you, Emily, but they will hate you. I ran back into the house, locking all the doors. My body was shaking. The television turned on by itself, with total static. And there, for a second, amid the hissing of the screen, an image appeared. The face of Jesus. Sad. Without saying a word, I turned off the device. And then, my phone vibrated. It was a message from an unknown number. "Keep going. They need to hear it, even if it costs everything." That broke me inside, because at that moment, I realized the true gravity of my mission. It wasn't just about counting, era alert. Even if I was rejected, even if I was mocked, even if it meant losing friends, reputation, freedom, I needed to speak up. So I started recording videos, alone, in my room, telling everything I saw. No cuts, no embellishments, pure truth, raw pain. But I didn't know yet that by going public, I was opening a door to something much darker. The first video I posted had less than 50 views, a small number, but the reaction was different. A few commented empathetically, saying that they had felt something strange, as if a presence had touched them while they were listening to me. Others, the majority, called me a fanatic, liar, manipulative. But something strange happened the next day. The video disappeared. No warning, no explanation. My account was blocked for violating guidelines, even though I had not used offensive language or graphic images. Just words. The truth. I created another account. I posted again, and again it was removed. That's when I understood. It wasn't just people who wanted to silence me. There was something bigger trying to silence me. That same night, while I was editing a new video, the lights in my house started flickering. I thought it was a power outage, until the computer turned off by itself. And for a second, the screen flashed with a sentence that froze me. "You have been warned." I looked around. My room looked the same, but the air felt heavy. A suffocating sensation, as if something invisible was glued to my neck. A whisper echoed inside my head. "You are disturbing." I ran to the bathroom. I splashed my face, trying to wake up. When I looked in the mirror, for a split second, I saw my reflection smiling at me. But I wasn't smiling. I fell to the ground. I cried like a child. I wondered if I should stop. If it wasn't safer to forget everything, live a normal life, pretend nothing had happened. After all, who was I to carry this weight? And it was at that moment that the cell phone vibrated. This time, it was a phone call. Unknown number. I answered. Silence on the other end. Then a voice, identical to Jesus, said firmly, "You asked for a mission. Now live as if time is up." I hung up immediately. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I was going to faint. And for the first time since I got back, I felt scared. In truth, not of what I had seen, but of what I had not yet seen. The next morning, something even more bizarre happened. When I arrived at school, I saw a group of students waiting for me in the hallway. Total silence. They looked at me as if I were a monster. A girl who had barely spoken to me approached me and said, "You're messing with dangerous stuff. Stop before it's too late." I asked how she knew. She replied, "Because ever since I saw your video, I haven't slept, and I hear voices too." I looked into her eyes. There was truth there, but also terror. It was real. I wasn't alone. And deep down, I knew. If even hell was reacting, it was because my mission was working. But the price would still be charged. The name of the era was Madison. He was 16 years old. He was from my school, in the same literature class. We weren't close, but she was one of the few who, after the video, came to me with tears in her eyes. He said he hadn't slept well since watching it, that he felt presences in the room, whispers in his dreams, and, most frighteningly, that he saw shadows in the mirror. I know it's true, Emily. I saw something too, before. I just never told anyone. They'd call me crazy. That was the last time I spoke to her. 2 days later, Madison disappeared. The news spread through the city like wildfire. The authorities searched. Sniffer dogs, helicopters. Nothing. No trace. No cameras saw her leave the house. It was as if she had evaporated. But I knew. Deep down, I knew that this was no ordinary disappearance. The night before she disappeared, she sent me a message. They came at me. I tried to resist. That didn't leave my head. And then came the second blow. Her social media profile was deleted. Not deactivated. Off. As if it never existed. I ran to the school, went to the computer room, tried to access files, old lists. And to my horror, her name had even disappeared from the school system, as if Madison never studied there. I went to the director. I asked directly, "What happened to Madison?" She frowned. "Who?" The ground seemed to open up beneath my feet. "Madison! Black hair, light eyes, literature class. She disappeared." The director looked at me as if I had spoken in another language. "Emily, we don't have any students with that name." I ran away. My heart was pounding. I felt nauseous, dizzy, desperate. Was it all in my head? Was I going crazy? But then, when I got home, I found the note, stuck in the backyard fence. It was hers. I recognized the handwriting. 3 sentences written in shaky letters. They took me away. They erased me. But you're still here, guided. Someone, or something, was acting to silence everything. And if Madison had been erased because of what she knew, I would be next. That night, I didn't sleep. I knew I could no longer hide, nor remain silent, because the more I talked, the more hell twisted. And for the first time, I understood what Jesus meant when he said, "You will have a short time." After Madison disappeared, nothing felt safe anymore. The reality around me began to crumble like wet paper. Even my parents, who had previously tried to remain calm, began to realize that something was very wrong. But it was on the night of April 28th that everything became impossible to ignore. The entire city of Savannah witnessed it. It started at 3:17 in the morning. A sound, deep, metallic, like the sky itself was being ripped apart, echoed throughout the city. The fire alarm in our house went off on its own. My father ran through the halls with a flashlight. My mother shouted for me. But I was already on my feet, standing in front of the window. Because I knew. It was the moment. The sky was red, not like the sunset. Red as blood spilled over clouds. Silent lightning cut through the sky without making a sound. And then, something happened that no newspaper could explain. All the crosses on the downtown Baptist church, 3 of them atop a historic steeple, fell at the same time. No wind, no earthquake, just collapse. And it didn't stop there. At school, security cameras recorded figures crossing the empty hallways at that same time. Alarms went off on their own in 5 locations around the city. Phone lines went dead. And for exactly 7 minutes, all internet connection in Savannah went down. Digital silence. As if someone, or something, had pulled the thread of reality. The next day, the news tried to give explanations. Atmospheric anomaly, cyber attack, weather phenomenon. But those who were there, who felt the weight of that night, knew that was not natural. And in the midst of all this chaos, a phrase appeared graffitied on at least 5 walls in the city. "You are deaf." No one claimed responsibility. The cameras didn't show anyone doing it. And the scariest thing? That same phrase was on the envelope I received days before. I had an emotional breakdown. I cried for hours. But between the sobs, a certainty grew inside me like a burning ember. I was no longer trying to convince. I was trying to save. And now, finally, people started looking for me. Parents, students, even teachers came to my house. They wanted to know, to listen, to understand. But with the increased attention came something worse. They came too. That night, I heard footsteps on the roof, and a voice, not human, whispering at my window, "You've crossed the line." After the night of the torn sky, Savannah was no longer the same. People tried to move on with their lives, but there was fear in everyone's eyes, nameless fear, and a strange feeling in the air, as if someone, or something, was always watching. And then, what was spiritual crossed the line. It started with small signs, doors slamming on their own, mirrors cracking for no reason, electronics working on their own. But within a few days, the phenomena took shape, literally. On Monday morning at 6:47 a.m., a school bus screeched to a halt at the Washington Street intersection. City cameras caught something, a dark figure, not human, crossing the crosswalk. No face, no defined body, just shadow. And even without sound, it was possible to see the terror on the driver's face. The image went viral, but the original video was removed less than 24 hours later. Inappropriate content, they said, but I had already saved it. And when I watched the slow-motion video, I saw the shadow was looking straight at the lens, as if it knew I was watching, as if it was a warning. Guys. And then, it started at home. First, the walls. Stains that appeared and disappeared like dirty hands pressed against plaster. Then, the voices. At 3 a.m., every day, someone, or something, whispered my name. Emily. It was soft, almost sweet, but loaded with menace. My father, who had been trying to rationalize everything until then, finally broke down. He fell to his knees, crying, with the Bible in his hand, screaming for everything to stop. "Give me back my daughter! Give her back!" But I was still there, and at the same time, not the same anymore. I tried to explain to him it wasn't something that could simply be erased with repeated prayers. I had been marked, and now the marks were spreading. I received a letter, physical, in the mail. No sender. Inside, a single sheet. "You opened a door that you cannot close. And now, everyone will pay." That night, I dreamed about Madison. She stood in a dark field, surrounded by silhouettes that murmured inverted prayers. Her eyes were empty. Her mouth moved soundlessly. And yet, I heard clearly, "They come for you on the 12th day." I woke up with the clock showing 3:33, and there it was, on the wall of my room, written in what looked like burnt charcoal. "Today is the 11th. That's when I understood that it was coming to an end, or to start over, and what would happen in the next chapter could change everything, or delete everything. 12th day. I woke up before the alarm clock, but maybe I didn't sleep. I don't even know what sleep is and what wakefulness is anymore. Everything gets mixed up when you cross the boundaries between this world and the other. My house was silent, but not the silence of peace. It was a thick, heavy silence, as if the air itself was waiting, and I knew what that meant. Today was the day. On my bedroom window, written fogged up on the glass, with letters formed by the morning steam itself. "Today ends." I got up and put on the same clothes I was wearing on the day of the accident, that light blue blouse with the school initials, as if that connected me to the girl I was, the one who died on that road, the one Jesus found between worlds, the one who was sent back with a mission that almost no one wanted to hear. I went downstairs and found my parents in the living room. They looked at me like they knew. My mother wept silently. My father clutched a crucifix so tightly that his fingers were white. "Emily," he said, "you don't have to do this." But I needed it. I picked up my cell phone and started recording. I looked straight into the camera. My eyes were no longer the same. They held memories of things no child should ever have to carry. And then I spoke. Everything. No cuts. No fear. No disguises. Today is the last day. Not just for me, but maybe for all of us. Because ignoring the spiritual doesn't make it go away. It just makes it closer and stronger. As I spoke, the temperature in the house dropped. Breathing became visible. The light flashed. And then I heard footsteps upstairs. But we were all there. The camera fell out of my hand. But it kept recording. A presence entered the room. Invisible but felt, as if death had come down from the wall. And in that instant, everything froze. Until the time. And he appeared. Jesus. Just like the first time. Sad. Huge. Silent. But now, there was something different in his gaze. A deeper pain. A goodbye. He reached out his hand, and when he touched my shoulder, I felt everything disappear. The house, my parents, the world. I wasn't there anymore. The camera kept recording. In the video, which went viral hours later, you can only see one last frame. A bright light, a deep sound, and then darkness. And a message on the screen. She warned you. And you. Do you still have time? If this story touched you in any way, share it. Maybe just one person will wake up after hearing it. And maybe there's still time. Thank you for listening to my truth. Even if it scares you. Even if it makes you uncomfortable. If you've come this far with me, it's because this story touched something inside you. So I ask you, subscribe to the channel. That way, this message can reach more people. People who may still be asleep like I was. If this made you feel something real, leave a like and comment below. I heard, I saw, I understood. Only those who watched it all the way through will understand the weight of this. And now, it doesn't stop here. The next video is already appearing on your screen. Click, because the truth is not over yet, and you need to see what comes next.